Next time you sit down at a sushi restaurant, pay attention to something. At least half of what's on the menu is probably not sushi. And that's not because the restaurant is doing anything wrong. It's because over the last 30 years, the word sushi became an umbrella term that covers everything, including things that nobody in Japan would ever call sushi. Most people look at a Japanese menu and treat everything on it as one single category. The rolls, the sliced fish, the little rice pieces, the cones. All sushi. Except they're not. Today we're going to fix that. We're going to name every piece you actually see on a menu, understand what separates them, and figure out exactly when sushi stopped being Japanese and became something else entirely. The first thing to understand, and this changes everything else, sushi does not mean raw fish. That's probably the single most widespread food misconception out there. Sushi comes from Japanese and refers to vinegared rice. That is what defines sushi. The rice. Not the fish, not the seaweed, not the soy sauce. Rice seasoned with vinegar, sugar, and salt. Which means sushi can have raw fish, yes, but also cooked fish, shellfish, egg, cucumber, or avocado. It can even be completely vegetarian. If it has that rice, it's sushi. If it doesn't, it's not. And with just that one idea, you can suddenly organize everything else on the table. Let's start with the one that creates the most confusion. Precisely because it's not sushi, even though it appears on every sushi menu in the world. Sashimi is sliced fish or seafood served alone, with no rice, usually clean cuts of tuna, salmon, or octopus, arranged on a plate and served with soy sauce, wasabi, and pickled ginger on the side. None of those accompaniments change what it fundamentally is. The fish is the whole point, with nothing alongside it that would distract from it. Sashimi actually predates modern sushi, and in Japan it's treated as a completely separate discipline, not just a different dish. The fact that surprises almost everyone. The quality of sashimi is judged by the cut, not just the fish. A dull knife breaks the muscle fibers and completely changes the texture in your mouth. Japanese masters spend years sharpening the same knife to make the exact same cut every single time. The knife, in this case, is as important as the ingredient itself. Nigiri is probably the purest and oldest form of modern sushi. A small portion of vinegared rice pressed by hand with a slice of fish or seafood on top. Nothing else. No roll, no cone, no seaweed wrap. Rice on the bottom, product on top. Sometimes a small amount of wasabi pressed between the two, but that's the whole thing. What most people don't know is that nigiri was born in Tokyo in the 19th century as street food. It was the fast food of its time. Vendors prepared each piece right in front of the customer, who ate it standing up in seconds. That's why it's so compact and direct. There's nothing unnecessary about it. Today, at the best restaurants in Tokyo, they still serve nigiri exactly the same way. Except now it's anything but cheap. A single piece of bluefin tuna nigiri at a top Tokyo counter can cost more than $50. Now we get to the format that almost everyone pictures first when they think of sushi. The roll. Here you need to separate two things that get confused constantly. Maki is the classic roll. Seaweed on the outside, rice inside, filling in the center. Thin, clean, usually 1 or 2 ingredients. The seaweed flavor is part of the experience, not just a wrapper. Uramaki is the opposite. The rice goes on the outside and the seaweed stays inside wrapped around the filling. Visually, it's whiter, rounder, and usually has toppings on the outside. Sesame seeds, fish roe, sauces. This is the format that took over the Western world and became the foundation of fusion sushi as we know it today. And here's what most people don't know. Uramaki is not Japanese in origin. It was invented by a Japanese chef in Los Angeles in the 1970s because his American customers refused to eat seaweed. They found the texture strange and the flavor too strong. So he took the maki, flipped it inside out, and hid the seaweed on the inside. That single decision created the California roll, probably the most eaten piece of sushi in the world, and one that for years most people in Japan had never even heard of. 2 more formats worth knowing because you'll recognize them instantly. Gunkan, which means battleship in Japanese, is a base of rice surrounded by a strip of seaweed that acts as a wall, like a small enclosed boat holding everything together. It was designed for ingredients that can't sit cleanly on top of a nigiri, fish roe, sea urchin, creamy mixtures. The seaweed wall contains everything neatly inside. If you see a compact piece with closed seaweed sides and something piled generously on top, that's a gunkan. Temaki is completely different, a cone of seaweed filled with rice and ingredients, eaten by hand immediately. You don't slice it, you don't dip it piece by piece. You eat the whole cone at once. It's the most informal of all sushi formats, and also the one that deteriorates fastest. The seaweed softens the moment it touches the rice. At the best temaki restaurants, they prepare it right in front of you and tell you to eat it within 60 seconds. After that, the texture is gone. Here's the part that almost nobody explains. What you eat at most sushi restaurants outside Japan is fusion sushi, which is neither better nor worse, but it is a genuinely different thing. Traditional Japanese sushi uses very few ingredients and almost no sauces. No cream cheese, no mango sauce, no spicy mayo on top. The rice is the star and the fish needs to be fresh enough that it only needs a touch of wasabi and soy to be complete. What's spread across the United States, Mexico, and the rest of the world is an adapted version that incorporated local ingredients and local tastes. The avocado and cream cheese roll you find across Latin America simply doesn't exist in Tokyo. But in many cities outside Japan, there are sushi restaurants with decades of history that have built their own tradition around those flavors. It's not better or worse. It's different, and understanding that difference is exactly what lets you know what you're actually ordering. So the next time you open a Japanese menu, you already know what matters. If it has no vinegared rice, it's not sushi, it's sashimi. If the seaweed is on the outside, it's maki. If the rice is on the outside, it's uramaki. If it looks like a small boat, it's gunkan. And if it's a cone you eat with both hands, it's temaki. And if it has cream cheese and spicy mayo on top, it's probably delicious. But nobody in Japan would recognize what you were talking about. The most expensive sushi in the world is served at a small restaurant in Tokyo with no printed menu, no choices, and no background music. You sit at a counter, the chef looks at what arrived from the market that morning, and decides what you eat. The meal lasts 2 hours and starts at $300 per person. And it still has a waiting list that stretches months into the future. Because when something is made with that level of care and precision, it doesn't need a menu to explain itself. The food does it on its own.